Okay, first and foremost, I'd like to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, Bahasham, Rachakwadash, and double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone. Today we're going to be continuing with Isaiah, the book of Isaiah. So Isaiah chapter 2, verse 1 says, God's universe and reign. Isaiah chapter 2, verse 1. The word that Isaiah, the son of Amos, saw concerning Judah and Jerusalem. And it shall come to pass in the last days, right? So this is a vision, that Isaiah seen. And it shall come to pass in the last days, right? So a vision of the end times, that the mountain of the Lord's house shall be established in the top of the mountains, and shall be exalted above the hills, and all nations shall flow unto it. And so it says, and it shall come to pass in the last days that the mountain of the Lord's house shall be established in the top of the mountains, right? And physically, literally, it's talking about how Jerusalem will be established at the top of all mountains, but also what a mountain symbolizes a government, so that the nation of Israel, of the government of Jerusalem will be the most important, in the kingdom. It would be the number one, the ruling government, whatever we say goes. And shall be exalted above the hills, and all nations shall flow unto it. So, and why are nations going to flow unto it? Not only will you have people, from the different nations coming to Jerusalem, coming to Israel to offer tributes and bring gifts and things of that nature, but they're also coming to do what we're finna read in verse 3. And many people shall go and say, Come ye, and let us go up to the mountain of the Lord Yahweh, to the house of the God of Jacob, and he will teach us his ways, and we will walk in his paths. For out of Zion shall go forth the law and the word of the Lord Yahweh from Jerusalem, right? So they're going to be coming to Jerusalem, to try to learn the ways of righteousness, to the ways of the Lord, because they're going to, in the kingdom, they're going to acknowledge that this is the right way, and the ways of the Lord will be the way of life in the kingdom, and we're, Israel, we're going to enforce that. So they're not even going to have a choice. They're going to have no choice but to, follow the laws. And he shall judge among the nations, and shall rebuke many people, and they shall beat their swords into plowshares, and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war anymore. So it says, he shall judge among the nations and shall rebuke many people, right? And remember, this is talking about the end time. So this is talking about, when the Lord comes back, that destruction he's going to bring, that's how he's going to rebuke and judge among the nations, that judgment, that destruction. And they shall beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks, right? So what? Their weapons are turning into, and becoming what? Tools of farming, tools for agriculture, which is symbolizing that, there's going to be a time of peace. There won't be any more war. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, so, right, they won't be warring against one another anymore. Neither shall they learn war anymore, right? Because once again, it's going to be the times of peace. Verse 5, O house of Jacob, come ye, and let us walk in the light of the Lord. Therefore thou hast forsaken thy people, the house of Jacob, because they be replenished from the east, and are soothsayers like the Philistines, and they please themselves in the children of strangers, right? So it says, therefore thou hast forsaken thy people, the house of Jacob, because they be replenished from the east. So, well, we look into this word replenish, right? They be replenished, to fill, be full, to be full, fullness, abundance, to be full, be accomplished, be ended, to be accomplished, to be satisfied, to satisfy, to accomplish, complete, to confirm, right? And so the house of Jacob, they be replenished from the east, they become accomplished from the east, they've become built up, in the ways of the heathen, in the ways of unrighteousness, and are soothsayers like the Philistines, in which a soothsayer is pretty much is like a someone who can predict the future by the ways of magic or witchcraft. To practice soothsaying, to conjure, to observe times, practice soothsaying or spiritism or magic or augury or witchcraft, soothsayer, enchanter, sorceress, diviner, fortune teller, barbarian. So pretty much going into witchcraft, our people were delving into those ways, which is unlawful. And they please themselves and the children of strangers. And they please themselves and the children of strangers, right? So, you know what? They started equating themselves with the heathen, making deals with the heathen, cahooting with the heathen, and so pretty much it says, therefore has forsaken that people, the house of Jacob. The Lord had forsaken the house of Jacob because what? They were turning away from the Lord and following the ways of the heathen, the ways of unrighteousness, the ways of iniquity. Their land also is full of silver and gold, neither is there any end of their treasures. Their land is also full of horses, neither is there any end of their chariots. Right, so remember, they're replenished from the east. That's why they have all this, this silver and gold, these treasures. They got built up in the east. But what else do they also have? Because remember, that was in wickedness. So their land also is full of idols. They worship the work of their own hands, that which their own fingers have made. Right. So like you'd have a man who would build or sculpt or create an idol in which they would turn around, and worship as if it was a higher being, as if they didn't just create that themselves. Like it's really idiotic once you think about it. And we have there's an example of this. I mean, this is pretty much going into like the end times, but still there's an example of this happening throughout the scriptures, because this is something that Israel has been doing. They've been worshiping idols, and we see that throughout the scriptures. So an example of that I want to get with dealing with Aaron when he made that calf. Here, Exodus chapter 32, we start at verse 1, the golden calf. And when the people saw that Moses delayed to come down out of the mount, the people gathered themselves together unto Aaron, and said unto him, Up, make us gods, which shall go before us. For as for this Moses, the man that brought us up out of the land of Egypt, we wot not what is become of him. And Aaron said unto them, Break off the gold earrings which are in the ears of your wives, of your sons, and of your daughters, and bring them unto me. And all the people brake off the golden earrings which were in their ears, and brought them unto Aaron, and he received them at their hand, and fashioned it with a graving tool. And after he had made it a molten calf, and they said, These be thy gods, O Israel, which brought thee up out of the land of Egypt. So, the day they made this calf and then started worshiping as if it was the God that, delivered them out of Egypt, when they know it was the Lord Yahweh. And when Aaron saw it, he built an altar before it, and Aaron made a proclamation and said, Tomorrow is a feast to the Lord Yahweh. And they rose up early on the morrow and offered burnt offerings and brought peace offerings, and the people sat down to eat and drink, and rose up to play. And the Lord Yahweh said unto Moses, Go get thee down, For thy people which thou broughtest out of the land of Egypt have corrupted themselves. They have turned aside quickly out of the way which I commanded them. They have made them a molten calf, and have worshipped it, and have sacrificed thereunto, and have said, These be thy gods, O Israel, which have brought thee up out of the land of Egypt. Right, so that's pretty much what Isaiah is talking about. How they worship idols that they've created with their own hands. Right, so the land also is full of idols. They worship the work of their own hands, that which their own fingers have made. And the mean man boweth down, and the great man humbleth himself. Therefore forgive them not. And mean here, when it says mean man, it's not talking about like a angered or mad man. It's going into the people of low status or low rank, the poor of the society, for example. And that's why it's comparing them. It says, and the mean man boweth down, and the great man. So the from the poor to the rich, to the high esteem, humbleth himself. So they're all they're bowing down to these idols, no matter what status you are. They were all doing it. So therefore forgive them not. Enter into the rock, and hide thee in the dust, for the fear of the Lord Yahweh, and for the glory of his majesty. Right, so hide for the fear of the Lord. And when the Lord returns to bring us to destruction, you're going to have this going on. People are going to be fleeing and trying to hide. They're going to be trying to, it says enter into the rock and hide in the dust. And what do we have nowadays? You got these underground bunkers. You might have a facility placed in a mountain or something. These are where people are going to be trying to run to, which isn't going to help them, because what do we read? It's Jeremiah chapter 49. Verse 10. See, in here, this is speaking of Esau, but it still applies. This is more specifically speaking on Esau, but it still applies. But I have made Esau bare. I have uncovered his secret places, and he shall not be able to hide himself. His seed is spoiled, and his brethren and his neighbors, and he is not. Right, so when the Lord comes back, he said you're not going to be able to hide yourself. So they can go to all these bunkers and etc. So it's going to help them. Verse 11. The lofty looks of a man shall be humbled, and the haughtiness of men shall be bowed down, and the Lord Yahweh alone shall be exalted in that day. Now, so this goes into the lofty looks of man shall be humbled, and the haughtiness of man shall be bowed down. Pretty much going into what? That pride of man. The day of the Lord is going to be one of great humbling. And the Lord alone shall be exalted in that day. It says a day of reckoning. For the day of the Lord of hosts shall be upon every one that is proud and lofty, and upon every one that is lifted up, and he shall be brought low. Right, so all those of high pride, high esteem, those who think they have high status, even they're all going to be brought low in the day of the Lord. And upon all the cedars of Lebanon that are high and lifted up, and upon all the oaks of Bashan, and upon all the high mountains, and upon all the hills that are lifted up, and upon every high tower, and upon every fenced wall. Right, so all of these things are going to be brought low as well, in which these things are really symbolizing or referencing those people of high esteem, of high stature, who think, who are lifted up, who are highly esteemed in this world, they're going to be brought low. It's not literally talking about speaking on the trees and whatnot. It's just comparing those people to those things. Why? Because they're tall, they're high. And upon every high tower, and upon every fenced wall, right? And what, you have a fenced wall, you think you're protected and whatnot. You think nothing can get to you, but nah, that's not going to be the case. The Lord's going to bring that wall down as well. And upon all the ships of Tarshish, which were ships built for great long voyages and cargo, and upon all pleasant pictures, right? So those pictures, the images, they're idols. That's all of that's being brought down too. And the loftiness of man shall be bowed down, and the haughtiness of men shall be made low, and the Lord Yahweh alone shall be exalted in that day. It's pretty much, re-emphasizing what he said in the 11th verse. And what you see is emphasis on, the proud being brought low. Why is that? Because remember, this is a end time vision. And what do we see all around us today? Is just full of pride. It's that pride that makes people think, oh, they don't have to fear the Lord. That makes people think if they commit this, shouldn't anything happen to them. And so, the Lord is going to wipe that pride out. What does it say? And the Lord alone shall be exalted in that day. And the idols he shall utterly abolish, right? And they shall go into the holes of the rocks, into the caves of the earth, for the fear of the Lord, and for the glory of his majesty, when he arises to shake terribly the earth. Right, once again, they're going to be trying to flee and hide, for the fear of the Lord. In that day, a man shall cast his idols of silver and his idols of gold, which they made each one for himself to worship, to the moles and to the bats, right? And because during that day, they're going to be casting away these idols once they realize that this idol can't help them. They're going to see the Lord and his power, going to be trying to pray to this idol or whatever. And they're going to be like, bump that, throw the idol, start running, fear for their life, trying to get somewhere to hide, You're going to cast them to the what? To the moles and the bats, forget this. I'm out of here. That's going to be the sentiment. Because what? The fear of the Lord. To go into the clefts of the rocks and into the tops of the ragged rocks for the fear of the Lord Yahweh, and for the glory of his majesty when he arises to shake the earth. Right. Seize ye from men whose breath is in his nostrils, for wherein is he to be accounted of? Right. So seize ye from men. Don't put your trust in man whose breath is in his nostrils, going into the mortality of man. And a man, what? Why would you put your trust in a man when that man is just as you? That doesn't even make sense. He's just as helpless as you are. Y'all are the same type of, being. Why are you putting your trust in him? For wherein is he to be accounted of? Right. So what can he do for you? And what can he do for you, especially in a day like this, where only the Lord alone shall be exalted? It's a trick question, because he can't do anything. So, that's Isaiah chapter 2. It's pretty much going into, the division of the end times, and, how the pride on this planet will be made nothing once the Lord comes back. He's going to put an end to all of that. So with that being said, once more, I would like to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem, Rakakadash, and double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone, and Shalom to the hopeful elect.